I could make this video 7 seconds and just say, yes, this is the best way to play Dragon Quest 1 and 2, but I'm going to yap longer because there is a lot to cover, and B, well, free will, I guess. Last year I made back-to-back reviews of Dragon Quest 1 and 2 to hype up for the long-anticipated Dragon Quest 3 remake. The remake of 3 definitely delivered, and my thoughts still stand with the original 2 games. I'll link the videos if you haven't checked them out and were curious about watching them, as those will actually talk about the game and story proper. This is more just going to talk as if you already are familiar with these games. Long and short though, I used the Switch ports, aka the mobile versions that look like melted plastic for visuals, but gameplay I guess is fine. Presentation aside, the game stood solid, and I predicted that the remakes this year would be our definitive versions of 1 and 2, and I also prayed that my statements wouldn't be outdated. So are they, or am I completely wrong? Yeah, they're worth it. If that's all you're looking for, well, I guess that's it. If you want to hear a bit more of my thoughts, as well as me just generally reflecting and wrapping the Erdrick Trilogy up, well, strap on in, I guess.
Please, you must make full Tantacha. You must do all that you can. The fate of the world rests with you.
So HD-2D has another entry, and it's really dropping in a chronological order this time. Not only is it a good spot for those who haven't played the original games, but after experiencing the remake of 3 in 2024, well, 3 was a great remake and rather faithful, while adding a lot of quality of life aspects and overall visuals to enhance the game. Obviously, the NES games have had some age showing for quite some time. 3 was actually a rather competent game prior, but I think it was done tenfold with Team Asano, and that game is so fun to play through. I loved Dragon Quest 3 HD-2D. If you played 3 though, the game neatly set you up perfectly for the prequel and made you familiar with the world that you were going to see in 1 and 2. Going chronologically, we see the end of 3 bleed to 1, and then follow up finally with 2. Story-wise, we see that expanded quite a bit. Even more so, these feel closer to reimaginings than just a pretty remake. 1 adds a bunch more liberties to stories and sequence of events without bastardizing the plot too hard or retconning a bunch of items. It really felt like cleaning up by addressing plot holes or making the game progress well less vaguely, as, you know, the original title did. Starting with 1, we still see our solo adventure, but with a lot more minor characters as the original story lacked the presence of many key players. Especially Gwaelin as a secondary character, we get a lot of depth for her as more than just a vessel for the hero to bone post-final boss. She gets a lot of scenes to flesh out a character and have some extra scenes between her and the hero too after he saves her, which is much appreciated. Having a stronger bond grow rather than just knight saves girl makes the story that much more enjoyable overall. Having a character also adds stakes to this and a reason we keep fighting as opposed to the plot deems it so. Having all these minor stories just help the overall nature of how the Dragon Lord has affected Alefgard at this time. It's nice to see, and I don't dislike it. Obviously adds and pads the game a bit, but obviously the first game was rather lacking in content, as it was a very, very short game. Keeping with the stakes do seem more tangible. Having destroyed an unnamed town strewn about makes the threat of monsters more real. There is no names to these towns, and the people, stories, and history are all lost, submerged in poisoned swamps. It makes the world of Alefgard feel abandoned, intentionally so, mind you, because as once it prospered after Erdrick liberated the lands from Zoma, you can assume that many towns sprung up. Now most of them have been lost again. Gameplay as well is rather expanded following a lot of the changes seen in Dragon Quest 3 HD. 1 was rather limited for battling, as you would assume, being a one-on-one game, but this is addressed with a lot more complex line of battling. And good god, this shit is fucking hard. Like, what the hell? I got bodied so much in Dragon Quest 1 compared to the first time I ever played this game. Now this is helped by the fact that all battles are non-1 versus 1 anymore. Getting ganged up by a team of 4 sucks, but you always aren't strung up to dry from the enemies. Bosses are also new and expanded, have some more strategy than just attack and heal when you get low HP. The Mirage fight though sucks quite a bit. It's one of those kill all at the same time or else one or all of them will respawn type BS. You get a widely expanded arsenal from the original game, and you can set it to use against the enemies, but you still really gotta know thine enemy. Exploiting weaknesses and defending against their primary methods are key. A lot of the bosses late game I had to refight and adjust my approach, especially when it came to equipping certain types of gear that nullified or resisted types of elements. There are some busted moves at the hero's disposal, like when you get access to the sigil abilities, also tying together a crucial point from the original 2 game that was otherwise vacant. Having you construct the sigils that would help you or descendants for the sequel is a rather cool idea, and I overall like this change. This with the scrolls you find and learn, a nice rather large moveset, and the mini medals retroactively add more to the game and options in terms of gear and whatnot, so that is also rather nice. All this being said, those hyper familiar with Dragon Quest I will be pleasantly surprised to find a new experience here. The playtime is extended a lot here, as I've already alluded to, and really changes a lot to the original title more than just the translations and jazz. I mean, rip to the 3 enjoyers who prefer Hurtmore over Sizz or something like that, I guess. I'm sorry. Jumping to 2, we see a lot of the same with the changes to this one. Story beats change ever so slightly, while having the overall narrative stay very similar. The elephant in the room here is the newest character, being the Princess of Kanak. Having a team of 4 does add to the overall strategy and really builds on the concept of having you team up with your extended family. I like that a lot with this story. Your cousins have more character here, as well as getting personalities and substance to what we never really saw. Having conversations of the state of the world, their dynamic, and even living up to the title their ancestors attained all those years back with Erdrick and the protagonist of Dragon Quest I. They can bond as people as well. Early on, their dynamic is restrained, as it's clear they've had limited interactions in their childhood, still attempt to be semi-formal as royalty would maybe assume to be, as opposed to just being family. Adjusting to treating each other like a team as opposed to associates or other professional contacts is really a big point at the beginning portions of the game for me. Princess of Moonbrook Perenal is dealing with grief as well as having the most motive to kill Hargon to avenge her people. It adds a character depth that wasn't there as opposed to just a blank slate. I mean, you think she would be rather traumatized after watching her entire family and kingdom go up in flames. Similar quality of life dropped with 1 and 3, and the team balancing seems to be a bit better from what I've played so far of 2. I'm not fully finished with that one at the time of writing. Hey, it's post-editing Josh here. I really wanted to address something I didn't notice when writing the script initially because I didn't have much time with Matilda, the Princess of Kanak, but she still has seemingly an ability that even if you have her set to following orders like you do with all the other party members, she will occasionally just do her own strategy. It's not like goofing off like the Jester ability was in Dragon Quest III. However, sometimes the effect can be beneficial, sometimes it isn't. I just want her to actually follow the orders I prefer, and it kind of makes her a weaker asset to the team. She has interesting stats. She's the fastest one out of the group by far, but don't really care for the just deciding to go against your orders periodically. I don't know if that stops after some point, but I've noticed that in the hour or 2 after I've gotten her and had time to play with it. So, not a fan of that. Folks of the original know that Prince of Kanak, Caradoc, sucks. That seems to be a bit better, but I guess I haven't gotten to the endgame to fully test that out. 2 was always a game that was sorely lacking something for me, and this really changes a lot of my opinions. I always thought I preferred 1 as it was a much shorter and confined adventure, as 2 felt way expanded but still having a lot of the restrictions that we saw with 1. But this is such a more realized game to me than the original, and I will say that Dragon Quest II is the absolute standout here. I really have been enjoying this game. Other than that, the games obviously look nice and have a much more realized and colorful world than we initially saw. Obviously, Team Asano does great work with the HD-2D in my opinion, and this is really no exception here. Now, this combined together as the HD-2D Erdrick Trilogy is a great reimagining of the original trilogy that started this monumental series. They are worth your time, absolutely, but I will not say they completely invalidate the original games. I think they help as a better barrier of entry for those looking to try, as we see a much more forgiving and more approachable trilogy than the NES starters. I had that conversation after releasing my original Dragon Quest videos, as with talking to people, a lot of sentiment was shared that Dragon Quest 1 and 2 were not really great RPG starters. Obviously, a lot of people would point to 3 or newer games in the series, such as Dragon Quest 8 or 11, to be better entry points, and yeah, I think that's great, and there are awesome entry points to the series, but I think the HD-2D Erdrick Trilogy is great if you also want to start chronologically, so to speak. If you want a challenge too, though, there is a draconian quest mode, and seeing as I was getting whooped on normal, especially for Dragon Quest 1, I dread to think what cruel punishment a higher difficulty offers somebody here. So, go for it. I think it's greatly designed, catering to new and old fans of the Dragon Quest series. If you haven't experienced any of these games yet, this is the best way to experience it, and still a great addition to those who have played it and can compare the pros and cons. There's a lot that changed here, and I think it's really cool if you've already played the original games just to see what has changed. See a bit of the magic that the original fanbase felt all the way back in the 80s maybe too. As I said in my Dragon Quest 3 video, I missed out on that hype that Dragon Quest 3 initially brought, so I wonder if I can recapture some of that magic, even just a little bit. Regardless, I will never say no to more Dragon Quest hype. I always think that the series is heavily underrated and we need to see more. It's a fantastic franchise, and while I love these remakes, we are also getting a 7 remake next year, and gosh, that's cool, but can we just see what they're cooking with Dragon Quest 12 already? I'm ready for it.